Okay, at this point I want to go ahead and talk about expressions. So you'll notice that all these values are set to a constant value. There's two other ways we can modify it. We can set up an expression, so we can set up like randomization or create conditional checks, things like that, using little bits of code. We can also set up maps, which we'll take a look at later, so we can artistically paint stuff. But getting used to expressions is really going to unlock like a ton of interesting things you can do inside of XGen, and it doesn't take a lot of skill or knowledge in programming, right? So don't be intimidated by it. There's just like little snippets of code that you'll be reusing a lot. So one thing I'm noticing here is that all of my hairs are exactly the same length, right? Like I said, I can paint a map, but even when I paint a map, there's going to be some real consistency to it, which is not very natural, right? That's not very interesting to look at. I might also make this just slightly bigger. So I'll set that to 0.085. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this little expression button here. You can see it opens up the expression editor. I think some version of Maya, I think it's like 2020 or something like that. There's a version of it that the expression editor is broken, so just be aware you might need to update your Maya version. So when you open it up, you'll see there's this little area right here that's just your code. And it has a nice little example that's actually set up to show you perfectly how to kind of write code for the XGen expression editor. So generally speaking, the way it works is that if you want to call or set a variable, you use the $ plus the name of that variable. You can see when I bring this up, there's a lot of pre-made ones that come with XGen or is referencing something already happening in XGen. So like you can get the C length, I think it is going to be the length of the current hair that you're working on. But if you want to define a new one like rand, right, and then I want to set an equal sign, then I'm defining it or I'm assigning it a value. So I could, up here I'm assigning A to be a value of 2.055, and down here I'm just calling it by just not setting an equal sign. So I'm just returning or calling this value. Or I could set it down here like $A times 2, right? So that would be, I'm calling this value right here. But then I could also, come down here and set A to be something else again, right? So I can like set A equal to itself times 4, I don't know, and then semicolon. Okay, so that's generally how you're calling and setting variables. I'll keep this rand function. The other thing is whenever you create a new line, except for the very last line, you want to end it with a semicolon. So a semicolon is going to just like cap that line off. If I click apply, you'll see I'm going to get like a little error that says unexpected end of expression. And that's usually because the line above it didn't have a semicolon. If I added a semicolon here and probably set a value, I just probably need some kind of value, and click apply, you'll see it didn't give me an error, right? Click apply. Okay, so you need that semicolon. And then this right here is a comment. What's really cool about the expression editor is what you put in the comments can actually create GUI for you, graphical user interface, right? So this little slider right here is created because this right here has that. If it didn't have that, it might have a slider, but it might also just have a single value. So I'm going to cut this just to see what it looks like. I'll get rid of that too. Click apply. Okay, it still has it. But I can come in here and I can actually define the range of this, right? So it's right now it's going from 0 to 0.05 all the way up to 5. If I set this to -1.0 to 1.0, you want to do the 0.0 or else it's going to step by integers instead of by decimal values, and click apply. Now when I drag this back and then kind of come here, you can see, let's click apply. There we go. So you'll see, oh, I guess it can go up to, for some reason it's still going up to 2. Oh, it's because I have this set to 2. If I just set this to like, let's say 1, click apply, right? So now you can see it goes from -1 to 1. If I didn't want to go to -1, I would just set this to 0, click apply. Now you can see it goes from 0 to 1, right? So this is really useful. Another thing you can do is if you want this expression really quickly, you just click on this drop down arrow and just say reset to slider, and that's how you can get that default kind of value there. So if you ever lose it, you can do that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this to from 0 to 5, click apply, just so I have a little bit more range to get my hair. Make it a little longer, but I can always adjust it as I go. So I'm gonna randomize this value. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and set a new variable. I'm just going to call it rand. You can call it whatever you want to. Set it equal to, and I'm going to call a function. So I'm going to call the randomization function. You can see as I'm typing it in here, you have all these functions that you can call. Most of them are just math functions. I can click on this rand right here, and you can see it tells me more information about what it needs, right? It's telling me the inputs I need, right? And it's going to tell me what it does. So, and it's also telling me what it returns. Most of the time, it's just going to return a float value. So I'm going to need a min, max, and a seed. You don't really need the seed, but we're going to put a seed in anyways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a multiplier. So whatever I have as my length, I'm going to randomly select each hair and I'm going to multiply that length by a value to make it shorter or longer. So if I take this length, so let's say like I have a hair and that hair's length value is 1, and I want it to be, and I multiply it by 0.9, now it's to a length of 0.9, right? It's 90% as long as it used to be. And then another hair, I can have a different random value that's returned from this right here. And let's say it gives me 1.2, right? Then it's going to multiply 1 by 1.2 for that hair, and that hair is going to be longer, right? So I'm going to define a range for this that's essentially, distance away from 1. So if I did 1 comma 1, and then let's just add a random seed value, which is the end value. Don't really have to worry about that right now. We add a semicolon, click apply, right? You're going to see that, let's go ahead and I have to multiply this, of course. So I'm going to multiply the length of my hair. We can call this something else. Let's call this lang, or let's just do len. Ooh, okay, that's good, I think, right? I think so. Yeah, okay, len. All right, and then we're gonna multiply $len by $random, and then click apply. And so you'll see nothing's changed, right? Because this rand function's just returning 1. I'm just multiplying the length of the hairs by 1. So now I'm gonna go ahead and give me a range. So my min value, the minimum value I want it to be, and then my max value. So I'll set it's like 0.8, and then go up to like 1.3. Oops, not 11.3, 1.3. So it's going to take random values for each hair and multiply them by the length, and I'll click apply. And now you can see each of those hairs are getting a slightly different value. And the larger that, that range is, let's go ahead and pull this. Let's close that. Let's make this a little bit shorter. Click apply. And then let's just generate again, right? So the longer that range is, right, if I take this max value and set to like 4, click apply, right, you're going to get really long hairs because some of those are getting multiplied all the way by 4. So if my length of my hair is already 1, then it's getting 4. So let's go ahead and set that back down to something like 1.3. Oop. And then click apply, accept. And then what's cool is I can still come to that length value, right? And I can still change that length with that slider, right? It's just changing that first variable's value, but it's still applying that randomization on it for me. So that's really cool. It's going to make it so that, it's very easy to adjust as I'm going along. And then once we get maps in, we're going to go ahead and paint maps, and we're also going to multiply the map value to that. So we start to like layer these things on. You can start to get really interesting stuff going on.